What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Sorry, I was running a few minutes behind. Today, we're doing a video. It's kind of piggybacking off yesterday's video we did about the Noahide Laws. And today, we're going to explore who is the order of the hermetic order of the Golden Dawn and how it all ties in. So, let's get started. Here we go. This will probably just be a quick little introduction video. It's about like 20 minutes long or so. And then I have a real in-depth deep dive planned. I'm still working on that. So we're just going to explore who they are for right now. And I'm also going to try to tie in how Trump is a member of the Golden Dawn. The videos have been getting really hard to find, but throughout this election, if you guys are really paying attention, there was a few times he said it's about to be a new dawn or a golden dawn. He's a member of this society. We're going to try to prove that if we can find the videos. They've been kind of hard to find. Like I've said this a few times. YouTube used to be 20 years ago. There was no censorship on YouTube, so videos didn't get taken down. There was a video about 20 years ago of Trump in his full Masonic gear, like it was a real video, but that video has literally disappeared. I've been searching for it for months and haven't had any luck with that one. But there did used to be a video of Trump in his full Masonic gear. I haven't watched this video yet, so if it ends up getting weird, I'll just stop it because I clicked on another one and it was weird. It was like teaching how to do like rituals and crap, and I was like, oh no.
Hello and welcome to Past, Present, and Occult with me, Emiliano Noriega Petty.
Okay, there we go.
In today's episode, we'll be exploring the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn. I want to point out at the beginning that I am not a member of the Hermetic.
And also, later on in this series, I'm going to show a video of how Trump had Aleister Crowley's basically great granddaughter at one of his rallies, and he spoke about her and stuff by name. It was pretty crazy.
Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, and that the purpose of this video and the one before and after it are to give you a sort of idea of what these magical traditions are about in case you want to personally pursue them further. The original Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn no longer exists, but there is a modern reincarnation of the order. I'll leave a link to them down below. As an FY.
Yeah, that's not true. They're definitely still around, guys. That's not true at all.
My membership is currently by invitation only within the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn.
Yeah, just like how Masonry used to be. You couldn't get into Masonry unless you were invited.
So let's get into it.
Usually by a family member.
Where did these people come from? The history of the Golden Dawn begins with three men, William Robert Woodman, William Wynne Westcott, and Samuel Lytle Mathers. All of these men were Freemasons and members of the Society Rosicruciana in.
Yeah, and this Westcott name is still a powerful family today. So is Mathers. That's a real powerful family.
Anglia. If you want to learn about the Rosicrucians, watch the video before this one. Along with the memberships they shared, they also were interested in alchemy, Kabbalah, and the occult in general. More importantly, during this particular time in history, they actually happened to be good friends. Now we get to discuss the event that really kicks off the history of the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, and I'll be interested to see how many.
I said this in one of my other videos. People don't realize, but MAGA is the highest level inside Satanism. So I'm probably saying too much, but who cares?
If you think it was a hoax or is somehow really legitimate, leave it down in the comments below.
Here's everything you need to start playing D&D online. First, a group of friends. A group of 4 to 6 players.
This event that we have to discuss is the discovery and interpretation of the cipher manuscripts. First, let me tell you what the cipher manuscripts are. Firstly, they are a collection of documents that, according to Westcott, were about 60 pages long. They were written in cipher, and in 1887, a reverend named A.F.A. Woodford gave them to him, and Woodford also happened to be a Freemason as well. What this document contained was the ritual and knowledge lectures that the Golden Dawn was going to inevitably base itself on. They were able to decipher the manuscripts using a book called Polygraphia written by Abbot Johann Trithemius. You might be wondering why.
And also, Aleister Crowley played a huge role in the Golden Dawn.
They chose this.
I don't know if you've ever seen the picture of him. It's like a black and white picture. He was wearing like a pyramid hat with like his hands up by both sides of his faces. That was a Golden Dawn pose.
Book, was it somehow indicated that they should in the cipher? Well, I can't tell you that, but I can tell you what the book was, and the book was on cryptography, which is the science of decoding hidden messages. It was an extremely popular book during this time, and it was both used by people who wanted to encode something and somebody who was looking to decode. So their choice makes sense for the time. It was definitely the book any learned man would have turned to if he was looking to break a hidden code. Now, according to the history of the Golden Dawn, the cipher simply contained a series of outlines for degrees in occult knowledge, and Westcott actually had to fill out the outline further into a working ritual system.
There's also the protocols of the Golden Dawn, which we'll get into those later. But basically, the last protocol is to bring about the mark of the beast. That's the last protocol of the Golden Dawn.
After finishing the rituals going from neophyte to philosophus, Westcott asked Mathers and Woodman to join him as chiefs of the new order.
That's why my Noahide video, I was saying you guys are going to start seeing how this is all connected. The laws of Noah and this golden order that Trump's a part of. You're going to start to see it's all about to play out right in front of our eyes, guys.
Now, if you're wondering where the manuscripts really came from, the Reverend Woodford, who gave them up, ultimately just said that they came from a dealer in curios, so that means he got them from an antique shop or an antique dealer, and who knows where that came from. This has, of course, led to a number of speculations as to the actual origins of the cipher manuscripts, ranging from a claim that the author of Zanoni, A Strange Story, Lord Edward Bulwen Lytton, wrote it. There's also the claim that Frederick Hockley, who was a Rosicrucian seer, may have been the writer, but there is no proof for either of these. But there is a theory that even the Rosicrucians think has a...
Anybody who doesn't know who the Rosicrucians are, they're another secret society, kind of like the Jesuits, and they're tied into Catholicism too. It's called the Rosicrucian Order. A lot of bishops and cardinals inside Catholicism are a part of the Rosicrucian Order. Maybe we'll get into all that too eventually. There's so much to unpack here, guys.
Certain amount of truth behind it. Let me now quote them. The real truth behind the cipher manuscripts is probably as follows. It now seems certain that the cipher manuscript was written by Kenneth Mackenzie, the author of the Royal Masonic Encyclopedia and a leading member of the SRI. Mackenzie had known Eliphas Levi and was a friend of Frederick Hall and another high-grade Mason. Leading Golden Dawn historian R.A. Gilbert suspects that the real Hermanubis Temple was a Golden Dawn prototype founded in 1883 by Holland. This group was also known as the Society of Eight. The theory continues, saying Mackenzie wrote the ritual outlines of the cipher manuscript for Holland's order, but that group never manifested. This theory then simply ends by stating that Westcott acquires the papers after Mackenzie's death. Now, the person who's really taking the reins at this point in the order's history is Westcott, and Westcott's a really big Freemason, and one of the things that he is going to fixate on is the need for a pedigree for the order. That means that he feels that it's important to show that this wasn't invented.
That's what you have to understand is no matter if it's Rosicrucians, all those different societies, it's basically all masonry when it comes down to it, guys. They're Freemasons.
But that in fact the Golden Dawn is a continuation of a real occult tradition. As such, the following events occur, and even the Golden Dawn admits that this is probably what happened. In, let's call it a worry or panic to develop this pedigree, Westcott creates another page of the cipher and inserts it into the manuscript. Now, a good question to ask here is, why did he worry so much about it as to fabricate the new page? Well, it's because at this point in history, pedigree matters to the Masons, to the Rosicrucians, to everybody. They want to believe they're joining an ancient secret society, not something that just came out of somebody's head. As such, the letter contained the following things. It claimed to contain the credentials and address of a particular person, Fraulein Sprengel, or Sprengel. Her magical name was Sor Sapiens Domina Pitur Astris. because, if you're into magic, you want to have one of those cool names. Now, as far as every historian and legitimate occultist is concerned, this woman never actually existed, but here's what he did with the story. He claimed that using the address that he was able to get in contact with her, and by a series of letters, she made Westcott the leader of the temple that was going to be established in the United Kingdom. Westcott.
All right, so I don't know if this is true, but I've heard rumors. They say that the girl he was talking about was Lilith from the Bible. But I don't, like I said, I never been able to verify that one way or the other, but I've found it pretty interesting.
Was able to accomplish this in the year 1888 by producing a charter for the Isis Urania temple, which he gave the number 3 to. This again may have been to give it.
Yeah, like ISIS, like the terror group today. That's why they chose that name, guys. There's a deep meaning behind that name. There's an occult meaning behind the name ISIS. That's why the terror group chose that name. It dates back to Egypt.
Bit more credence so that it appeared that it wasn't the first
from the times of like Osiris and then basically
temple. It was in fact the.
But that's a whole nother subject there that would get me off on a whole different hour tangent. So trying to stick to the main points.
Continuation of another temple.
Albion Online is a sandbox MMORPG in which you write your own story.
And with that, Westcott had his order. Now all he had to do was begin filling out the rituals and teaching. Oh, and in case you're wondering how nobody kept asking him questions about the woman from Germany, he conveniently kills her off a year or two later. During the early years of the Golden Dawn, basically from 1888 to around 1891, it was mostly a school that taught theory like Kabbalah, astrology, alchemy, geomancy, tarot, various other symbolic systems, but did not, according to all.
Yeah, and you notice right here when it says magic with a K, that's usually they're talking about a weird type of like sex magic they do. When you see it with a K, that's usually what it means. It's tied to Aleister Crowley.
All evidence that we can find teach any other magic other than the lesser banishing ritual of the pentagram. However, it wasn't unsuccessful during this time, and its membership grew to about 80 to 100 members by the year that it finally decided to become serious in terms of its occultism and developing its second order. Now, what is the second order? So, the Golden Dawn breaks itself up into various groups within itself. The first one, the Outer Order, is actually the Golden Dawn.
And most secret societies do that, guys. They compartmentalize that way. The lower level members don't really have a clue what's really going on. Only the higher level members do, like the Master Masons, the 33rd degrees. It's the same in all the secret societies. They're highly compartmentalized like that.
And then the second order is their Rose Cross.
Basically like a secret society within a secret society, if that makes sense. That's how they're all ran.
Equivalent. It'll be after the year 1891 when Mathers will have finally written a ritual for the Adeptus Minor degree, which is the first grade of the Inner Order, that the Rose Cross Order finally opens, and that they begin to have a second order, and people begin initiating themselves into this higher system within the Golden Dawn. Now, this second order, or the Rose Cross.
And that's the thing, too. If you look at this picture here with the people, and then you'll notice the blue. You'll notice blue is basically the color of Satanism. There's no way around it, basically. That color is heavily tied into Satanism. That's why the UN colors are blue. Yeah, maybe I'll show you guys all that one of these days. I'll show you how it's tied into all that. But that's their color, basically, is light blue like that.
Cross part of the Golden Dawn really made up the fundamental part of it at this time in history. The entire goal of getting initiated into.
What's up, whoever's watching? I did a video yesterday on the Noahide Laws. I'm basically tying them into the hermetic order of the Golden Dawn, showing how they all tie in together.
To the outer order was to inevitably make your way into the inner order. And if you're wondering what the ritual.
I was saying earlier in the video, I've been seeing a lot of Christians basically promoting Trump and saying you're not Christian if you don't support Trump, blah, blah. And I don't think Trump's who he says he is. I think he's a member of this Golden Dawn, and I think he's basically making way for the Antichrist. I know a lot of people are probably going to be mad at that, but it is what it is.
I'll give you a little hint. It was based on the discovery of the tomb of Christian Rosenkreuz, and it's supposed to be remarkably beautiful. In short,
But during like 3 or 4 of Trump's speeches this election, he brought up it's about to be a new dawn or a golden dawn. Because he's part of this order right here, the Golden Dawn.
the tomb is supposedly the
And then my personal beliefs, I believe the Noahide Laws are going to be what they use to come after us Christians, to persecute us. That's just my personal beliefs, and I'm just tying it all in together.
same as the Vault of the Adepts, and that's where somebody really gets initiated into the true mysteries of the universe, the world, and magic. Again, at least according to this particular magical system. This particular period in their history truly was the golden age of the Golden Dawn, and they were doing everything that they wanted to. They were having examinations for degrees, they were teaching people the higher secrets that they sought to expand throughout the world, and they were doing exactly what they had come into Earth to do. Unfortunately, this was not meant to last for whatever reason, and it begins to fall
This is all just masonry, guys. It's all these secret societies are basically the same. It's just masonry. They're just different branches of it.
apart in the year 1895. So, something that will become the theme if you study occultists, there's a particular type of occultist, and it's the one with a lot of creativity and imagination, but absolutely no real money. And the Golden Dawn had, as one of its founding 3 members, one of these people, and that was Mathers. And Mathers had a financier who he ultimately ends up beginning to have a falling out with at this time.
Like I said, the Westcotts and the Mathers are still a pretty prominent family to this day. They're one of the elite families.
Mostly because
They're not considered one of the 13 bloodlines, but they're an elite family for sure.
instead of just being a lone agent or somebody who knows outside of the Golden Dawn, she's a part of the Golden Dawn. Her name was Anne Horniman, and she was a longtime member of the Golden Dawn and rich because she's ultimately the daughter of a tea importer. Now, Anne, or Annie, and Mather's wife were actually close.
That's surprising to know. So they let female members in the Golden Dawn. That's actually kind of surprising. Because like Masonry and Rosicrucians and Jesuits, you can't have female members. Masonry has their own female branch. It's called the Eastern Stars. So that's actually kind of shocks me. They let female members in the Golden Dawn. Huh.
Close friends who had attended school together. She would make the effort to financially support Mathers and his wife after the 2 of them moved to Paris. The reason she decided to support them was he was going to devote all of his time and effort to developing the order. Now, why was she so willing to do this aside from being friends with his wife? Well, he was an extremely talented writer and magician, and within the circle of the Golden Dawn, he was extremely respected at this time. Annie really thought that he was going to be the person who brought them not only into the future, but established them as one of the fundamental.
And like I said earlier, if you do some investigation, MAGA is one of the highest levels within Satanism. It just all ties in together, and none of these people on TV or who people think they are, they're all working together with the devil behind the scenes, guys. I'm just trying to tie in to show you what I think is going on with Trump right now.
Magical orders of the modern world. Unfortunately, he had a few major personality problems. The biggest issue that he had was not really how eccentric he was, it was more the fact that when he was in charge of something, he seemed to need to be absolutely in control of the entire thing in a very autocratic way. Now, you might be saying, I thought that's
Yeah, Beaver didn't stay long. I don't think they like the MAGA thing. Oh, wow.
what they wanted, considering that they created an order.
That's the thing with my channel, guys. I don't care about subscribers and monetization or none of that. So it is what it is. Whoever sees it, sees it. If they don't like it, they don't like it.
Based off Rosicrucianism and Freemasonry, in which case they're obviously going for just one guy in charge. Well, yes and no. He just had a way of being extremely off-putting to people and extremely arrogant. Ultimately, the breakdown between these 2 people came from the fact that Mathers began to devote himself a lot more to politics within the city of Paris as opposed to the Order of the Golden Dawn, and Annie began to bring him to task about this. So in 1896, they had a disagreement about this particular political interest of his, and he accused her of trying to weaken his authority, so she just took all the money away from him because he seemed to forget that she could do that if he complained.
All right, guys, I'm gonna run out here and grab some food real quick. I'm gonna just let this play through for like a minute or two with no interruptions. I'll be right back.
Also, to be fair, it was the entire agreement behind why he was being given money by her in the first place. She wasn't being unreasonable here. It was what they had said yes to. All of this causes the folks back in London, particularly members of the Second Order, to become nervous, and Mathers releases a manifesto that basically, there isn't another way to put it really, it makes him the dictator of the entire system from the first to the second degree, and anybody who disagrees with him gets expelled. Everybody does acquiesce to this manifesto except Annie, so he expels her from the Order, which again panics everybody within it. After that, the next problem to beset them happens in 1897 when Westcott's association with the Golden Dawn becomes known to the authorities, and he resigns from both the Golden Dawn and his role within the Rosicrucian Society in Anglia. He's ultimately replaced by Florence Farr, who's a stage actress. She becomes head of the London branch of the Order, but he was just much better at running it, and the Order just ultimately declines because she can't continue the particular work he was doing, and the combination of Mathers making them look ridiculous. Also, even though Mathers is supposed to be running the entire Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, he continues to focus more on political activities while in Paris, and eventually Florence sends him a letter saying, how about we just end this entire thing? By that, she didn't mean their association with him. She meant the entire Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn. She went, it looks like this is going nowhere. Let's just dissolve it. Being not only arrogant, but I suppose rather paranoid, Mathers decided that she was actually trying to secretly get rid of it to bring Westcott back somehow. And because of that, he decided to be a wonderful man and decided to tell.
All right, guys, I'm back. I do guerrilla style YouTube over here, guys. I don't care about. I could have went in and cut that out and edited it, but I don't really care about all that.
Tell everybody that Fraulein Sprengel didn't exist, that Westcott had invented her, and that entire part of their history was a lie, which shows just how incredibly childish and immature he was and how utterly devoted to himself and not the Order he was. Now, for better or worse, Westcott did not defend or explain his actions that Mathers had just outed. The reason for this was after leaving the Order, he had to really keep to himself and not associate with them. You might be asking why he was so incredibly influential in creating them.
And when I hear Westcott, it reminds me of the Bushes, because I think the dad, great grandpa's name was Prescott.
Why did he pull away so suddenly just because the public became aware of his involvement in the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn and the Rosicrucian Society? Well, to put it quite simply, it was snobby English society that decided to have a massive problem with it, in particular because he was a crown coroner. Having such a prestigious and high-ranking job, he just couldn't be involved with something like that. The final nail in the coffin, at least according to members of the Golden Dawn, was...
What'd he say, a crown pornier? Let me look that up real quick. I'm interested what that is. Sound like he said pornier? No, that brought up a pork recipe. Yeah, I'm not sure what that was. It brought up a pork recipe.
The fact that at this exact time in history, Aleister Crowley also becomes a member who is eligible for the Second Order.
Yeah, see, I was saying it was Aleister Crowley ties into the Golden Dawn. I was telling you about that pic he took. That was a Golden Dawn pose.
I will go into more detail on him in the next episode on the OTO, but to put it simply, he was quite disliked by everybody who had
actually,
the authority to either...
You look to the right, the other videos, it's that black and white picture right there where he's holding his hands up by his face. That's a Golden Dawn pose right there.
Let him into the Second Order or not, and they decide not to, particularly Florence Farr. So what did Crowley do? Well, in typical fashion, he decided not to take no for an answer, went to Paris, and found Mathers. Mathers sort of saw Crowley as the perfect opportunity because he was really disliking how Florence was running things, and he was going to use Crowley against them by first initiating him into all of the degrees in the Second Order, and then sending him back with this particular task. But first, he did one thing. He completely dissolved the authority of the Second Order's Council over in London. At least that's what he said he did. And then he sent Crowley to take command of their headquarters, their ritual equipment, their books. Basically, he sent him there as his representative to enforce his will. Now, the reason this was somewhat pointless is after he initiated Crowley, the London Order just expelled Mathers and Crowley completely, in which you're both not part of the Golden Dawn anymore. So,
you know who might surprise you, who was a member of the Golden Dawn, is Jimmy Page from Led Zeppelin. He's a member. I'd seen an interview with him talking about it. I knew he was into the occult, and I knew he went and stayed in Aleister Crowley's house for like 2 years in London, his old house. So I knew he was into that kind of stuff, but I never knew he was an actual member.
When Crowley,
which wasn't surprising, knowing how into the occult he was.
showed up and walked into the room, he was luckily met by, of all people, William Butler Yeats, the wonderful Irish poet, who was not going to put up with any of Crowley's stuff. And in a
Yeah, I'm sure. I don't know. Maybe you haven't, but I know I've heard of William Butler Yeats before.
somewhat cringeworthy moment, as Crowley's walking up the stairs and Yeats is at the top of it, they're yelling magical incantations at each other and drawing sigils in the air with their hands. And all of that really does nothing, but Crowley eventually comes to the top of the stairs close enough to Yeats, and he's had enough with it, so he just kicks Crowley down the flight of stairs. This will ultimately end Crowley and Mathers's involvement with the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, and is a somewhat hilarious part of occult history, in my opinion. After this, and for various other reasons relating to small rivalry,
Dang, that's funny. I never heard that before. That's funny. He kicked him down the stairs.
and infighting, and the fact that the order created a sort of inner group within the inner group, it just really fell apart. William Yeats would remain in charge until 1901, but after that,
The inner group calls himself the Sphere. It's like I was saying, that's all the secret societies have. Basically, a secret society within that secret society that only a select handful of members know about.
he resigned because he realized that it was going nowhere fast. And the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, basically a few years later, will peter out into disgrace and completely disappear. But don't worry, its teachings will be preserved before it disappears through the following manner. So as they're dissolving and as the infighting is continued, Mathers hasn't completely given up, and he's still sort of trying to run his own Golden Dawn over in France.
Your health is your biggest asset. Find Anthem Blue Cross plan starting at $0 a month.
So you've got all of these multiple traditions going on, but luckily in 1930, the man that we need to show up shows up, and that's Israel Regardie. Now, he doesn't join the two orders I've mentioned so far. He specifically joins one called Stella Matutina. This order has its own particular history, but basically it's one of these offshoots, and I'll go into it in a separate video if you want. This is where Brother Regardie will ultimately gain enough information, knowledge, and wisdom to be initiated as an adept within this tradition, but unfortunately, Stella was dying. The repeated scandals and association with Aleister Crowley, along with a number of other tabloid-heavy problems that the Order of the Golden Dawn and its offshoots continue to have, basically meant it was done.
I'm pretty sure the guy he was talking about, Israel Regardie, I'm pretty sure he was a author. I think he wrote books. That name sounds familiar. I think he was a writer. I'm pretty sure. Maybe you can fact check me on that. I could be wrong. I think he was a writer, though.
However, he did something that was extremely important for its continuance, and what he did was he wrote a compilation that contained all of the secrets and knowledge of the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn. Now, there certainly may have been some members at the time who were furious with him that he released all of these secrets. However, the modern Order of the Golden Dawn only exists due to the book that he wrote. As such, all current traditions that try to follow the Golden Dawn path.
Oh, yeah. So, yeah, he did write books. That's what I thought. Okay. I just remember that name, Israel, and then Regardie sounded familiar. I'd heard that before.
See him as the great savior of the magical system. So for the next couple of years until...
Okay, so I looked him up. It says he wrote 15 occult books, and he was a chiropractor. His education was Doctor of Chiropractic.
The year 1970, the Golden Dawn will do its best to try to survive, but temples will close over the years, members will continue to disaffiliate, and finally there shall be no more of the original Order of the Golden Dawn or a single one of its offshoots. All of this will change in the year 1977, and this brings us to the current incarnation of the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, and two people are heavily responsible for us having it today. The two people responsible are now actually a married couple. They are Schick Cicero and his wife Tabitha Cicero. Both of them had the honor of meeting, working with, and studying under Regardie, so that's one of the reasons that they're so skilled and in love with his work. Another thing that I want to point out is that Mr. Cicero was actually a close friend of Regardie. Tabitha Cicero, some of you might know if you've ever looked at the paintings that make up the Golden Dawn's tarot. She's the one who worked very hard to create them. If you want to learn more about them, you can, but let me just sort of fill in what the Order's been doing since...
Yeah, they sound familiar too. I think that... I could be wrong, but I think he's like 30 years older than her or something, if I remember right.
It was officially reestablished by Sheikh Cicero in 1977. In short, they've been busy. They've been initiating, they have been moving across the country and the world, and
Maybe he just looked older than her, from what I remember.
they're doing a really fine job of making sure that the same
But I could have swore he had like gray hair and looked like he was about 60. She looked like she was about 30s, maybe 40.
fighting that tore the order apart beforehand isn't really prevalent again. One of the ways they've done this is by making their joining method a little bit more restrictive in the sense that it now requires a set of meetings and it requires a particular invitation by a member who's obviously in good standing. However, none of those are negatives and are probably helping the order survive. Like any modern magical and occult group, they teach alchemy, Kabbalah, and various other things to their outer order initiates, and then deeper secrets to their second order. Now, you might be wondering, well, if I'm supposed to know somebody who's in it, how do I join? They have a number of public events, or they have events in which the public can meet them. You can find a calendar of events on their website if you would like to, or you can just send them an email and tell them that you're interested. They're not standoffish people. They've just learned from the mistakes of the orders of the past. So what are they actually offering you, and what are they trying to do? Well, what they're trying to do is become enlightened within the Western Hermetic system. This means they're attempting to have a mystical union with the divine or an alchemical marriage of their soul.
Yeah, so he was born in 1936. She was born in 59. So he was 20-something years older, 23.
With the infinite.
Yeah, that was one of my gifts I was blessed with was I'm able to store a ton of information and remember it pretty much like a photographic memory. My brain kind of works like a computer hard drive. I'm able to just go and pull information I heard one time like 25 years ago. That's pretty much one of the gifts I was given.
That's one of the many terms of phrase that they might use, and it's what they're trying to achieve. Another way of thinking of it is that they're trying to understand the ultimate truth of reality, and they're doing that through a particular system that teaches magic. And if you don't know what that is, here it is. It is a system of ritualized ceremonies that are meant to help you get into contact with either your true self or the ultimate divine source, depending on the tradition and the vocabulary that they're using. The Golden Dawn system of initiation is based on the Tree of Life. They have 3 degrees and 3 orders. These things don't exactly overlap, and if you want to learn more about them, I'll leave the link to their exact description of how they break this all down below. But in short, they have a structure that helps you slowly understand not only yourself and the universe, but everything if you do it correctly.
EVE Online is a vast...
An accusation that can be lobbied against them by some is that they are less socially motivated than Amwork, which I covered in my last video, and let me give you my opinion on that. It's not that they're less socially motivated. In fact, most members of the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn that I've met are extremely kind and charitable people. It's that the goal of the order is more catered towards perfecting the individual as opposed to perfecting society at large. Not that they would hate to do that, but they see their work as the work of individual persons. The glory of the order ultimately being leading all.
Yeah, there's way more involved than what he's saying to the Golden Dawn. I thought he was actually going to get into their protocols, but he didn't. We'll try to see if we can find those.
Mankind to this great truth and realization, but they don't want to do that in the same way Amwork would do it by, let's say, being, again, aggressively socially minded in certain ways. They're fine keeping to just those who come to themselves. From my understanding, the current Golden Dawn does a very good job of teaching its initiates how to meditate and how to perform various ceremonial magical rituals. So in all honesty, it's an order that if you would like to join, you should try to read.
No, nobody try to join. Dude, it's demonic. Do not try to join this group or any other secret societies.
Reach out to them, let them get to know you, and then without being pushy and by just being what I would call a normal human being, let's see if they send you an invitation.
Yeah, that's enough with this video. Sounds like he's a member himself, possibly. I don't know. I could be wrong. And here's one. Oh, they left quick. I was going to say, what's up?
Just come my way wherever I go. Hard luck is that it stays. Good luck never stays a day.
On Blythe Road in London. This building that you're looking at right now is called the Blythe House. And as spooky as it may look, or as beautiful as it may look, this is not the topic of our video today. We are actually here on Blythe Road for something else entirely different, but when we parked the car, we were walking over to the location, we came across this, and it is beyond stunning. Now, Jessica was just pointing out to me that if you look right in that archway there, at the center of your screen, you see it? It's a giant face sculpture.
I'd say the face back there.
Let me ask you something. Does the name Aleister Crowley mean anything to you? If it doesn't, I guarantee you probably know the name, especially if you're a fan of Ozzy Osbourne, because he has a song called Mr. Crowley, which is actually based on Aleister Crowley, if you will. But if you don't know who he is, basically, he's a very dark individual who has some...
I was about to stop this video, but I just saw what I was talking about earlier. I think it looked like Jimmy Page coming up talking about, yeah, I think that's Jimmy Page right there.
Pretty strange and intense ties to black magic and the occult. And Jimmy Page...
Kind of a weird
Welcome
deal.
to jail, Smurf. Wait, put me in that cell. Huh? This cell is for VIP Hero Wars players.
has an interest in the occult and the dark arts. Monster.
Oh, my involvement in the Golden Dawn is in so much as...
Yeah, that's Jimmy Page from Led Zeppelin right there. That's what I was talking about earlier. I had seen this interview years ago, and him talking about he was a member. I was kind of surprised. Actually, it wasn't too surprising he was a member, how much he follows Crowley.
I was very interested, actually, in Eastern and Western mysticism. And I spent time...
All right, now Eastern and Western mysticism we're going to get into, because that ties into my Maitreya series. All this is going to eventually tie into that.
Reading and researching when
it's all linked together.
I was younger. Yeah, I guess that's it. That's there were some very eminent characters in the Golden Dawn, and I found it very interesting to see the history of those that had been in it, and this sort of esoteric movement, and also sort of what went on, the offshoots of it, of that sort of love of all things mystical and magical, all things bright and beautiful, really.
Do you think that's why people did that thing when they played Stairway to Heaven backwards and said that you were talking about Satan?
Yeah, well, you know, I'm going to go straight back to the Beatles here, because there was a time when somebody wrote a thesis about Paul McCartney being dead, and Paul is dead. And if you played back the records,
yeah, I've heard about that theory before. I'd watch a documentary, 10, 15 years ago on, I think Tubi maybe. But they said Paul McCartney died in a car wreck, and they didn't want the Beatles to end, so they basically replaced him with I forgot the guy's name, but I don't know. It was a pretty interesting little documentary. Who knows if it was true or not, but I found it pretty interesting. I mean, they made some pretty compelling arguments in there from what I remember, but it was a good little documentary. You should check it out if you're interested. But that's what he was talking about right there.
I'm very serious. It's crazy. But if you play back the records, there was something which said Paul is dead. And so then they started to play back all manner of records. And
yeah, they showed that actually in the documentary. I think it said he's dead from a car wreck or something, which is supposedly how they say he died. I don't know if that's true or not. Who knows, guys? It's interesting to watch, make you think.
Of course, we were going to be main candidates for it. And somebody said, oh, it says My Sweet Satan in it. And I thought, oh, gosh, it's hard enough writing the music one way around. I don't know that.
All right, that's enough of that video, though. It's kind of a weird video. I'm trying to see if we could find their protocols, which I seriously doubt we're going to find on YouTube. Yeah, I was watching this video right here. This was actually really interesting. They had a lot more information. It's like an hour long, so I think we'll check that out next time. But I've been doing some other research on like Google and stuff. I think we're gonna get into a lot more of that. It's just gonna be a lot more of me having to read some stuff. I was just trying to see if we could find a good little YouTube to get a little introduction into who the Golden Dawn was and stuff. What, dude? I know. Come on. Sorry, my dog's jumped up here in my face. What? Come on. I know, dude. So, all right, guys. Yeah, this is at 40 minutes. I'm going to go ahead and end it here. I just wanted to have a quick little intro into this. And probably either tonight or tomorrow, I'm going to pick back up and we're going to do a further deep dive into it. But all right, guys, God bless.